Dust rolled across the wide Arizona plain as the last light of day bled into the sky, staining everything gold and red like a warning from the heavens. And that was the moment Clara Everett realized her life as she knew it had ended. She sat on the back of a wagon, wrists trembling, heart beating like a trapped sparrow, her blue dress thin from months of hardship, her blonde hair tangled with the desert wind, staring ahead at the small adobe homestead where she was being delivered. Like a purchased object, rather, than a living soul. All because her uncle, drunk, bitter, and drowning in debts, had traded her to a poor Apache farmer in exchange for clearing what he owed, and she had been given no choice, no voice, no dignity in the matter, only a name whispered to her by the trader who handed her off. Nantan, a man she had never met, a man who was said to live alone on the edge of tribal lands, a man known not for wealth or power but for silence, pride, and a kind of ferocity that made even white men step aside. Yet when the wagon stopped and she was pushed forward, expecting violence or coldness or hunger in his eyes, she instead saw something entirely different. He stood tall and broad-shouldered, his russet skin warmed by the setting sun, his hair tied back, his clothes simple, his hands calloused from field work, but his eyes, dark and sharp as obsidian, were filled with a stillness that unsettled her. Not cruel, not angry, but deeply, painfully human, and she froze as he looked at her as though she were not property but a storm. He had no idea how to survive. The ceremony was conducted quickly by a tribal elder, the language soft and rhythmic, the fire crackling, the night already rising cool around them, and Clara's mind raced. She had been handed off like a burden. She had been told this man expected obedience, expected unquestioning compliance, that Apache men were wild and harsh. But when Nantan approached her after the vows were completed, he did not touch her, did not command her. Instead, he simply said, in accented but steady English, "You are safe here. No one will hurt you." And the words shattered her expectations, sent tears burning into her eyes against her will. Inside the small adobe house, lit only by a single lantern, she braced herself for what every woman sold into marriage feared, hands shaking as she stood near the bed. But Nantan did something that changed the course of her life forever. He reached for a blanket, laid it gently on the floor near the hearth, and told her quietly, "You take the bed. Tonight you rest." Then he turned away and lay down on the hard ground himself, leaving her stunned, breathless, and confused, because in a world where men bought women as possessions, this man, poor alone, struggling with his own past, chose instead to honor her dignity. And as she lay in the bed that first night, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breathing from the floor, feeling the safety she had never expected, Clara realized that everything she had been taught about Apache men, everything she had feared, everything she had braced herself for had been wrong, and a spark of something dangerous and beautiful ignited in her chest, something that felt like hope, something that whispered that maybe, just maybe, she had not been sold into a nightmare but delivered into a story she could never have written for herself, one where the man she had been forced to marry might become the one person who would fight for her, cherish her, maybe even love her. But at that moment, lying awake on her wedding night, she did not yet know that Nantan carried scars deeper than the desert, that he had vowed never to touch a woman without being wanted, that he had once lost everything to violence and refused to become the kind of man who took what wasn't freely given, and that his gentle choice tonight, the choice to sleep on the floor and let her keep her dignity, was the first step toward a bond that would soon be tested by danger, betrayal, and a growing attraction neither of them could escape. But for now, as the fire crackled softly and the cool night wrapped around the small home, Clara felt her heartbeat slow for the first time in months, because what he did on their wedding night had changed everything. The morning after their strange, gentle wedding night broke with a cool breeze drifting through the cracks of the adobe walls, carrying the sharp scent of mesquite and the calls of distant birds, and Clara awoke with a start, momentarily forgetting where she was until she saw Nantan kneeling by the hearth, silently brewing coffee over the small fire, his strong hands moving with practiced calm, and she felt a flutter of something unfamiliar, safety, maybe, or gratitude, or the dangerous beginnings of trust. He stood when he noticed she was awake, offering her a tin cup without meeting her eyes, as though afraid to overwhelm her, and she couldn't help but study him in the soft morning light, the quiet strength, The way the sunrise painted bronze across his cheekbones, the restrained kindness in his movements, and she found herself whispering, "Thank you for giving her the bed," her voice small but sincere, and he responded with a slight nod, as though any more acknowledgement would have broken something fragile between them. The days that followed moved slowly, shaped by routine and silence. He rose before dawn to work the dry, stubborn fields, turning cracked earth with nothing but determination and a worn wooden plow, while she cleaned the small home, cooked what little food they had, and tried to understand her place in a world that had been forced upon her. Yet each evening he returned with the same respectful distance, never demanding, never expecting, speaking only when necessary, but always watching her with that unreadable calm that seemed to hold storms behind it. And those storms became clearer. The day she followed him out to the corral and found him sitting alone,